what we're calling the speed rail. This is how we're attaching the RUV track to the ceiling and giving it structural support so that it can hang the bags. Each one of these spans the distance in between the ribs, and it allows you to punch a hole and put a through bolt or actually rivet through each of these holes, depending on what tools you have. And that allows you to have shear strength rather than straight pull-out type of strength for these rails, and you can put a ton more weight up on them. The way these work is you slip the back end through the OEM hole on the driver's side or passenger side, depending on what side you're doing. Then you slip the front. The front of this has a little tongue that slips underneath the headliner. And once it slips underneath the headliner, you pull it back forward out of the hole, and each one of these spaces line up around one of the ribs. Once you get it to where they fit around each of the ribs, you'll pull out one of these tools, and these come in the kit as well. One side clips into the OEM hole on one side of the track, while the other side clips into the hole on the other side of the track. And when you squeeze it together, it pushes the track up and centers it. One motion will push it up and center the whole speed rail. Now this is held in place. You can actually take your drill and punch a hole on either side and either rivet it with a 1/4-inch rivet or put a through bolt, 1/4-inch through bolt all the way through. So I'm going to set the front, and then we will set this into the back as well. And now the rail can be held up by itself. At this point, you will work on each rib in concert with the tool that we provide. After this is riveted or through bolted, take the tool off and move it to the next rib that you're going to work on and do your work here. And then when this one's set, move it to the next one. And it pushes it up and centers each one as you make your way down. Between each van, there's often differences of where these ribs line up. And they're usually within 3/8 of an inch in the overall span. But we allow this last track to slip back and forth by about 1/2 inch. And that allows us to be able to fit into multiple vans. What it does do is on the vans that it has to slip back to fit into, it leaves a small gap on the back side of the second speed rail, and we through bolt, and we just stack however many washers are needed to fill that space between the two, and then we through bolt and crank it down. You can through bolt every single one of these if you don't have a rivet gun, and it is in fact the strongest method to attaching the rail. For the center between the front and the back of the van, whether it's a 144 or a 170, the front is always the same and the back is what's changed. This separation, which is right behind the sliding door and the driver's side window, is what I call the zero line, because that's where I separate the back and the front of the van. There is a piece of RUV track that connects the two rails that go forward, and we use this to do it. I take a 5/16 inch drill bit, and I do this just as a guide, and it slips right through the center of this piece of metal here, this part of the speed rail, and we use that to center it right into the center hole on the ceiling. Once it's there, through the weld nut holes, I just go ahead and use a rivet, and I go up and I push through there and I mark it so that the paint is etched right underneath each of those holes. And what we want to do is use the step bit to put an oversized hole in each one of those marks. It's a large hole because it's got to be big enough to take the back of the weld nut and have it slip flush up through this rib. So we put oversized holes in. And it should slip right through those holes that you made and lay flat across that rib now. Double check to make sure everything lives flat nicely against the top there. Like this one I think is a little bit off. It's not laying totally flat. So I'll widen this one a little bit more and it will lay flat after that. Once it lays flat, same thing, put it up into place, punch your holes. This time you're using a 5/16 inch bit and set them with a 5/16 inch rivet. And that will hold it up into place. These are the pieces that go into the center of the vehicle. These clips right here slip on the ends where these holes are, and they're floating around, and that's what you screw into when you put the panel in. That's what holds the center of the panel into place. So to put these in, it's the same method. You put your 5/16 inch guide, either a bit or bolt, through the center, put it up into the center hole, and then punch your holes and set your 3/16 inch rivets. Just like that. You do them on the back and the front of each of the fans. The last piece of the extra anchors goes right in the front. It has a little notch here which shows the center, and again you put that with, there's usually a OEM hole right up on top. You line this up right with that and throw your rivets into the front of that, and that will give you bracing so that the panel doesn't push through to the roof. It stops it right here. Just like that. So any more information, you can come check us out at adventurewagon.com or stay tuned to our Adventure Wagon YouTube channel. We'll have more installation instructions in another video. Thanks.